Last couple of weeks, Destry, we've been talking a lot about music. You know Bonnie Tyler, right?
Yes. It's a heartache.
Yeah. Well, okay. So Total Eclipse of the Heart.
Total Eclipse of the Heart also, yes.
Kind of relates with what we're talking about today, because we're
Okay.
going to be talking about an eclipse. But it's, what does the lyric say? There's nothing I can, I'm only falling apart. There's nothing I can do, a total eclipse of the heart.
Yes.
I'm thinking of what to call the episode, but it's like Total Eclipse of Nineveh.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nineveh.
Yeah.
I like to call it Nineveh.
We'll figure out the title, but it's episode 61. We're going to be talking about Nineveh, more about Jonah, and this odd solar event that happened
Oh, cool.
during the time of... We are here, and it's an awkward time to record.
We've never recorded on Sunday
Yep.
before, and it's just right after church.
Yeah,
So
but this was the only time our all three of our schedules could align.
I think it speaks to the dedication that we have to our 12 listeners.
You know, we are dedicated. We are a dedicated bunch.
We are. We are. So, Nineveh. You want to talk about Nineveh?
Yes.
Let me do a quick funny thing that I just experienced
Okay.
moments ago before coming in here.
Okay. Cool.
So we've talked about me.
It'll
being
segue into Nineveh, regardless.
Okay, I'm sure it will. So we I'm a photographer here at Marcus Point, and I go around, and my camera's always within 5 foot of me. It seems it certainly is right now, but I got a new flash for it. New flash. I have a flash for it. I've never had a flash for it, and it's a new level of photography. But anyway, that's not the point of what I'm going to tell you. I retook two people wanted me to retake their pictures. I was taking pictures of them to put on the website, and a couple of people said, "We'd like for you to retake these pictures. Something about them we don't like. Maybe the lighting's off or something." So that prompted me. Well, it's time for me to get a flash anyway. So I went and got a flash, and I went to him today and said, "I have a flash, but first, tell me what it is that you didn't like about the picture, so I can see if I can correct it." Well, I just didn't like. I looked old. I didn't like. It was too close. And she said, you told me that you could touch up the imperfections and things, but you didn't do it with this picture. I was so close. I was really so close to saying, I spent an hour and a half on touching up your face, but I just didn't. I said, okay, all right. But I did. I touched up her face. It really, I did everything that I could to touch up her face, and I can't. I don't know what a person would like for me to do, but if I did much more, it wouldn't even look like her. You know what I mean? So anyway, I just thought that was funny. I thought it was a beautiful picture, but first of all, females view themselves differently than we do. That's one thing. But even her husband said the same thing. Yeah, I don't know what you want me to.
Oh, he was just agreeing. That's all.
Well, he's the one that maybe so. He's the one that. But anyway, whatever. So I just thought that was funny. So I will. I'll spend more time touching up, her photo, and we'll see what it comes out to.
It's funny because recently I don't know what I was reading or why I was reading this, but Hollywood celebrities, a lot of them, like, they maintain staff that whenever a picture is taken of them, before that picture is released, if it's a snapshot, it's just them like
absolutely.
walking through the street, casual, whatever, that goes to a department first that touches everything up and makes them their appearance in that photo look as perfect as possible, because they have this image that they feel they have to maintain.
Right.
And so coupled with that, like I remember in like when my daughter got her pictures taken at school, they always had this this offer, like when you get the pictures, like they could digitally retouch the photos to take out imperfections, all this stuff.
Yeah.
And then there's this huge controversy about like the unrealistic beauty standards for men and women because of all of the pictures that we see in advertisements and digital media and all this stuff. It's always an edited, photoshopped, whatever version of whoever that person is.
Yeah.
And so, like as a society, it's kind of like when you go to the store to buy meat, we always have this idea of what fresh, good quality meat is supposed to look like, because we've been presented with a certain color of meat that's been artificially altered over time. And so that's sort of shaped society's or understanding of, or expectation of what things should or shouldn't look like, or what people should or shouldn't look like.
Yeah.
And it's an unrealistic standard. And I think that's interesting how a lot of times, and it is, not just, the example you were talking about, but like just in general, people have kind of like three different perceptions of themselves. It's the perception that actually is, the perception that's filtered through their own, mental hangups or whatever about their appearance, and then how they feel they want to be displayed outwardly. And there's three entirely different looks.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, I don't know, it's a weird social thing that we've found ourselves in.
Yeah.
Where the least desirable version of ourselves is the one that actually is.
It certainly makes it difficult for photographers
Yeah.
that aren't of that level.
Right.
It makes it very difficult for somebody like me that takes pictures and gives them to the church to use whenever we're doing portraits.
Right.
And that's what these are. These are portraits. These are close-ups. So
Oh, okay. So this wasn't like you're just taking random pictures of
nope.
people coming in and out.
This was a portrait
okay.
this was a portrait.
Like a studio setting.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it was, just it was the best setting that I could get in the church where I run into these people.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? With a clear background, but it's just a bust shot.
Right.
So it is pretty close, and I totally understand that. So whenever somebody looks up the name,
Right.
my job is to have a picture for that name.
Okay.
All right. So it's not a distance. It's just a portrait of this person.
Right.
Just of the head. It's a headshot, basically.
Now, when your portrait is taken, what are your thoughts towards that? Like, do you prefer it to be touched up, or?
Josh, I can't even tell you how the last time I saw a
Okay.
picture of myself. It's been.
You should watch our YouTube channel.
I don't. That's something that I don't do. I listened to 60 the other day.
Okay.
I listened to the last one, but it was while I was working on my bike. I didn't watch it. I just listened to it. But as far as pictures go, man, I don't.
Do you prefer not to have your picture taken?
Doesn't bother me a bit.
Oh, okay.
I don't care.
Gotcha.
But I know what you're getting at, and I'll answer that by saying this. This morning, whenever I got to church, the morning I got to church, I looked in the mirror. I looked puffy. I looked tired. I looked old. I went, I don't care.
Yeah.
And I just went on about my business. I thought, man, I've aged. I turned 60 in September, but it seems like I've aged a lot. The way I look a lot in the last 3 or 4 years. It looks like I feel like I look like I've aged 7 or 8 years.
Okay.
But it doesn't bother me enough to worry about it.
Right.
I'm always behind the camera, not in front of the camera. Maybe I feel differently.
I was taking some drone shots of a job site the other day, or a potential job site, and when I got back and was uploading the pictures, I noticed in one of the pictures I was in one of the shots. The drone's way up in the air taking a picture, and I was, barely noticeable, but down in the corner. And once I did notice it, I'm like, well, that's an absolutely horrible shot of me, because I'm not like posing for a picture, expecting my picture to be taken. I'm sitting there with a controller.
Mm-hmm.
What it looked like, propped on my fat gut, and my head just looked down low, looking at the screen.
Picture. Perfect
had a big
posture.
coat on, you know. So I'm like,
right.
oh my goodness, I need to delete this photo. Like, I don't normally care either, but my goodness, that was.
There's
and
levels.
You actually took a photo of me once.
It was a horrible photo. And I didn't even think twice about it.
That I didn't even realize you took, just because you happened to be behind me in the checkout line at a grocery store, and when that picture showed up, next week in our small group, it had been horizontally stretched.
Yeah. It had been.
And the way I knew that is because I know the tiles in the back on the wall in the background, because I was in the checkout line at the grocery store. Mm-hmm. Those tiles are square, and in the picture they were all rectangular. I'm like, you stretched the wrong way.
That's what JPEGs will do on a camera. I did nothing to that shot. I just took the shot. You know what I mean? The ratio, whatever the camera does, the iPhone
well, sometimes
does
also if you put a photo in something. It will stretch to fit.
Yeah.
And if the frame it's stretched to does not match its original proportions, it'll stretch one way more than the other. And I just lucked out. Mm-hmm. And it stretched horizontally more than vertically.
It was. Yeah. I think you asked me. Well, I don't know what I did. I took the picture down. It was obviously stretched.
Right.
It was terrible. I didn't even think twice about it. So I was.
I mean, I thought it was funny. It's not like, I was insulted or anything.
Right.
Like, yeah, I know I'm chubby, but,
No, I'm not that chubby. I just took a picture of you. You didn't know I was behind you, and I was behind you, Mel, and I just took a picture, and I think I sent it to you that second.
and I was just like leaning up against the the conveyor belt or whatever I was putting groceries on.
Yeah.
And so the picture just looked like I had plopped my fat gut up on the conveyor belt.
Like they're gonna scan it.
Yeah. Like, thanks.
Anyway, that's an extreme. So I didn't mean to complain about that. I was just think it's funny, the personal. Like, I look at the camera right now. Yeah, man, I look like I'm 70 years old, man. And my eyes are all the lids of my eyes are starting to overtake my eyes. Mm-hmm. That's an attractive feature, isn't it? Before you know it, I'm going to have to look like this though. My eyes. Hey, I can see you now. I'm not even going to have to close my eyelids in order for it to be totally dark.
Yep.
Yes, we need something, man. But it doesn't stop me from doing this. I care. Who cares?
We're concerned about content.
Yeah. Yeah, we need to work on that too. But hey, before you get into your thing, I've been watching music documentaries of the last couple of days, and I watched one of the Dixie Chicks last night.
The Chicks.
Well, they were the Chicks.
Oh, they brought back Dixie?
Well, as far as did they change to the Chicks?
Well, so a couple of years ago, they dropped the Dixie because there's like all this bad associations with the term Dixie because of the Civil War and antebellum South and all that stuff, and so they're like, we're not going to be Dixie Chicks anymore. We're just going to be Chicks, the Chicks.
You know what? They didn't. It wasn't even about that. I don't know. Whatever they are, they are.
That was a time when everybody was like hyper focused on that sort of thing. Anyway,
gotcha.
Like kind of like Lady Antebellum. Like, we're going to be Lady A because the word antebellum has negative connotations. And everyone's like, what does A stand for antebellum? So, but they're like, we're Lady A now.
Wow. Yeah. Okay.
Anyway, sorry.
I know I live in that world, but I'm glad I don't operate in that world. You know what I mean? I just don't. It's just drives me crazy. But anyway, so this was just about whenever they talked about it was a documentary about they were on tour, and whenever the lead singer said something about George Bush, and it got them in quote trouble.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with what she said?
Vaguely, yeah.
Okay.
I remember when that happened. I just don't remember exactly what she said.
I didn't know what she said either until I watched this documentary. I was curious about it. I've been curious about it. So I found the documentary on Tubi, I think it is. I watched it, so I'll be talking about that next week, and how our perception and how somebody's, like we're talking about now, somebody else's perception of themselves and other people's perception, and how really timing is so important of thing. You can say one thing one day, say the same thing on another day, and it's got a totally different effect.
Yeah.
So their thing was timing, in my opinion. It was It was what she said when she said it. It could have not been. It could have not been any worse of a time for her to say something like this. So anyway, I'm going to talk about that next week. I enjoy it. I love their music. I'll be honest with you. I do.
They have a really, really good sound.
Oh man, they have a good the two sisters and what's her name in the middle? Such a great
Cowboy Take Me Away.
Man,
I like
it's
that
so
song.
good, so good, so unique. You know, you listen to me. There's nobody like that. You know, and that's
Good,
what I
good
love.
harmony is really, really
Good
hard to
stuff.
beat.
Yeah, they had a hard time. It was them against country music, is what it was. Them against the industry of country music.
Yeah.
I mean, it was hardcore, and the way they stood up to it is admirable. It really is. But
They were kind of at a weird spot too over their career, because during that George Bush thing, they kind of got in trouble with more right-leaning conservative groups, but then recently under like the Obama administration like Trump Biden administration, they sort of got in trouble with the left-leaning side of the world, and so like they can't catch a break.
Population can be very fickle.
Oh yeah,
We can be very fickle, especially when it comes to group attitudes. You know, how groups of people act, and how we feel like we have a certain amount of right to
also
say
how
things.
easily groups can be manipulated.
Oh my gosh, affected, manipulated, whatever the word is, influenced.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And this is a documentary that's put together to say what they want it to say, of course.
Yeah.
But the way this documentary presents them, it really makes, in my opinion, it makes the population look like idiots.
Yeah.
Because they're saying that you know, they interview some people that said, forget the Dixie chick. They were just saying, it was a one line. It was just one line of something. You know what I mean? And so what?
Well, also, we talked about this the other day, like how to separate the person from the music they create. You know?
Right.
I think lately nobody's able to separate anybody from anything.
I know, it's so true.
But-
even if it was done 15 years ago.
Yeah.
You know.
But I mean, especially, you know, like you were saying, the ease with which a group of people can be manipulated. I mean, that's one of the things that is like my annoying pet peeve about when people say we're a democracy. You know, because like, you know, we saw the danger of a pure democracy and how the you know, collective opinions of a large group of people can be like really easily manipulated, and so we wanted that democratic feature in our government, but we didn't want it to be the end all thing like French Revolution. We didn't want to repeat that, so we had the democracy idea nestled within the construct of a republic. So you have some stops against that, and you know, we took some ideas from monarchy, from republic, from democracy, you know, all that kind of stuff, and put it together. But yeah, to say that we're a democracy, that's an extremely dangerous idea to try to get people to wholly buy onto.
It's kind of been redefined, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Right. And what I also noticed, Josh, about that documentary is how whenever something gets rolling in the community, how it can feed itself, and you can't stop it. You know what I mean? Or it's very difficult to stop, and only time will take care of that. And sometimes people recover from that. There's so many actors and actresses that have recovered from places that you'd never think they would recover from.
Right.
You know, and then there's people that did one seemingly benign thing that they've never recovered, or at least never gotten back to where they were before. But one thing about the interesting thing about this documentary is they didn't want to get back to where they were before. They went somewhere else, and they're still doing it.
Yeah.
I thought, man, good for them. You know what I mean?
Right.
Good for them. They said, country music don't want us. We don't want country music. We'll do something else. And they're doing something else. And what I loved about these girls is that they're doing it with a daggone baby on their hip. Twins, other kids running around, and they are getting it done, man. They're business women. They have good people around them.
Right.
They control what's happening here. They all have feedback in here. They're feeding their babies. They're doing all this kind of, man, these women are smarter than I will ever be. You know what I mean? And they fight amongst themselves, but they never left.
Yeah.
They've never left each other. You know, whenever this documentary ends, they're still together.
Right.
And they will.
They're still the chicks.
They're still the chicks. But it was only one girl who said it.
Yeah.
The others didn't even know she didn't know she was going to say it.
Right.
She had no idea. She just was talking like I do. I don't know what I'm going to say when I come on this daggone show. I just talk, you know?
Yeah. That's the problem. Just kidding.
But they said it in the whole industry, their whole industry, the people in the band and every management, they all suffered.
Yeah.
Because of one thing she said, but they never separated themselves from her.
Yeah.
They stayed together and they just went somewhere else. I thought, man, what a great lesson that is. You know, what a great lesson that is. If I stood up in front of this church and said something really controversial, you know, would Donna leave me? I don't think she would. She might have every right to. I may do something that's worthy of her leaving me. But if she didn't, I may not stay around here. I might go somewhere else and we'll have a successful life somewhere else. That's what they did. It's a sisterhood, they call it. But anyway, I'll talk more about that next week.
Okay.
I only spent a half hour on it today. We'll talk about more of it next week. All right, Josh?
Well, you said something that really works well with what we're talking about today, about how the opinions and beliefs of a large group of people can be easily swayed.
Yes.
Because in church, we've been going through this series. Pastor has about the book of Jonah. He's called it the Comeback Kid, and he's focused more on Jonah himself and like Jonah's attitude and kind of what's going on in Jonah's mind, all that stuff. And we've discussed that a little bit too.
Yeah.
Like why he would be so averse to going to Nineveh and telling them about God and all this stuff. Because remember, Assyria was a long time enemy. Like its entire history has pretty much been an enemy of Israel. And Nineveh was the capital of the Assyrian Empire. Got its roots back in Genesis. When we read about this guy named Nimrod shortly after the narrative of the flood, as people started to repopulate the earth, the command was to spread out, repopulate the earth, be fruitful and multiply, all that kind of stuff. And then a few other couple of rules like don't kill each other, things like that. And
some little sidebars.
Yeah, don't kill each other, spread out, repopulate. Just some basic, some basic rules about rebuilding society. And they really, mankind really just didn't obey any of them. And the one that gets the most attention in the next chapters are a large group of people under the leadership of this guy named Nimrod. And Nimrod is often associated with the city of Babel and building that up. But everyone was like, no, we're not going to spread out. We're going to stay here in this. It was called the Plain of Shinar. It's like modern day Iraq. Basically, if you take a path from like central Turkey where the mountains of Ararat are, and you make a beeline towards the Persian Gulf, that whole area there is like the Plain of Shinar. And Nimrod specifically, he founded Babel, and from that grew other cities as well. One of which that was named Nineveh. Nineveh became the capital of the Syrian Empire. Babylon became the capital of the Babylonian Empire. Well, throughout that whole time, Assyria. The reason they got the name Assyria is because one of I think Noah's grandsons was named Asher, and so Asher became like this deity of the Assyrians. A lot of the kings of the Assyrian Empire were like Asher Banipal, and they have like that Asher prefix to their name, because that was one of their deities, was Asher. And well, as time went on, and as the conflict between Assyria and Israel grew, Israel was suffering from its own problems. Assyria was always this wicked nation. Its roots were in wickedness, and it grew in its wickedness, and all that stuff. Israel was sort of following a similar trajectory. The difference is God over and over again kept warning Israel about that trajectory, sending prophets to them and warning them. But even before the prophets, because we think of like Isaiah and Jeremiah and all those guys as the big name prophets,
right,
that went to either the northern kingdom or the southern kingdom. Even generations before that, like during the times during they're traveling through the wilderness, and during their time conquering the land of Canaan, time of the judges, the early kings, they always had this tendency to follow after the trait or the habits of the people around them, namely idolatry, marrying into them, and as soon as they did that, their practices always followed the practices of the people around them. Extreme wickedness, no importance on human life, child sacrifice, worshiping these pagan deities, and all this stuff went along with that. And if you're God, the creator of everything, and you're the one who fought on behalf of Israel, this is the nation that you have a covenant with. It's the nation from which you're going to extract. That's going to lead to the Messiah. 1 second, I feel a sneeze coming on. Maybe, maybe not. If I stop all of a sudden, we'll cut it out. Right?
Sorry.
So here's Israel, and then Israel splits up into a northern kingdom, which is still called Israel, and a southern kingdom, which is called Judah, and they both take on their independent trajectories. Israel, to the north, dives into evil much quicker than Judah, but they both still do.
Okay.
And so throughout this, we start to get into the part of the Old Testament. Once you leave Song of Solomon, then you start to enter into the prophets: Isaiah, Jeremiah, Lamentations, Ezekiel, Daniel, Hosea, Joel, Amos, Obadiah, Jonah, Micah, Nahum, Habakkuk, Zephaniah, Haggai, Zechariah, Malachi, right? Mm-hmm. From Isaiah to the end, it's all prophets. And, and these prophets are sent at different times to different parts of the known world. And there's two that sort of stick out as not, they didn't address Israel, they didn't address Judah, they addressed other people. One of them was Jonah, because he was sent to the Ninevites, to the people of Nineveh, and another one was Obadiah. He was he addressed Edom specifically, the descendants of Esau, and the difference between those two is Jonah was bringing a message of salvation to Nineveh. Obadiah was pretty much just saying, you guys are going to get trashed because you've been the biggest enemy of Israel and the biggest source of hatred against Israel. But so looking at Jonah, he didn't want to go to Nineveh because this is their enemies. There were other prophets that were happening at the same time as Jonah, both in the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom. And it's interesting to see those messages in parallel with each other. So in the northern kingdom, there was Hosea and Amos. And Hosea, just to kind of give a brief synopsis of these two, it's cool how Scripture also gives the timing of these, because Hosea and Amos both start out with, during the time of this king and this king and this king, and it gives the kings in the northern and the southern kingdom, so we know the time period this is, and we can link that up with history, which we're going to get to in just a minute. So Hosea, northern kingdom. The time frame is the span of these 4 kings in Judah: Uzziah, Jotham, Ahaz, Hezekiah, and those are the kings of Judah. The king in Israel was a guy named Jeroboam. He reigned for 41 years. And so it's the same time frame as Amos, the same time frame as Jonah. So all 3 of these guys are prophesying at the same time. Hosea was I feel bad for Hosea because he got put through some tremendously awful stuff as a result of his calling to be a prophet. His life was an analogy to Israel. Because in the Old Testament, the concept of marriage was used as a picture of God's relationship with Israel. And Israel kept leaving God and pursuing other gods. So in that picture of marriage, it's like a husband and a wife, and that wife leaves her husband and starts pursuing other men instead of her husband. And what that does to the heart of God and what that does to the life of the wife, or of Israel in this case. And so Hosea's life was made into a metaphor for Israel. He married a woman who left him, and before they were married, her profession pre-marriage was a prostitute. They got married. She left him again and went and pursued other men in that same profession of prostitution. Broke Hosea's heart. I'm sure it broke the heart of their children, all this stuff. And that story arc is him constantly pursuing her getting into trouble, beyond what she could control, and he comes in and purchases his own wife who's being sold basically as a sexual slave. He finds out, he goes and he purchases her, brings her back, and you see that reconciliation, but you see a really interesting version of reconciliation because she comes back and realizes that she's been bought and addresses him as master. And he says, no, it's true, I bought you, but still call me husband. So that love was on Hosea's side was always constant, unwavering, and it was independent of her actions, his love toward her. And we see God using that as a metaphor for his relationship with Israel. In amongst that, in that metaphor, Hosea keeps warning over and over and over again that Israel is going to fall to the Assyrians. So just like Hosea's wife Gomer got into trouble, got basically put into bondage of the people she was pursuing, Israel, it was going to happen the same way, that they were going to be conquered by the Assyrians, and they were basically going to be enslaved to the Assyrians. So we have Hosea here telling Israel specifically, Israel is going to destroy you. Assyria is going to enslave you, and Nineveh is the capital city of Assyria. At the same time, the prophet Amos is in the northern kingdom, and he's echoing the same thing, saying, and this wasn't my life is a metaphor type thing. This was just straight out, guys, you're going to get destroyed. Stop doing what you're doing. You're going to get destroyed. The people next door are the ones that are going to do it. Assyria is going to destroy you. This longtime enemy of yours is going to destroy you. And at the same time, you have Jonah, who God sends to the destroyers to tell them God wants to save you. And it was a criticism to Israel because for hundreds of years God has been having this conversation over and over with Israel. Turn from your wicked ways. Turn back to me. If you don't, it's going to be destruction, because God wants to get the attention of his people and wants that to be restored. And sometimes the way you have to get someone's attention is to put them through a bad time. Let them reap the consequences of their own decisions.
Yeah. We can all relate to that, I think.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if you've ever been a kid,
Yeah.
punished, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
You're if you're a good parent, you punish your kids not for revenge or anything, but you punish them to give them the wisdom to make better decisions next time, and to restore that relationship between you and that kid. And so, and that's what God was doing. Well, Jonah, called to Nineveh, didn't want to give them any hope whatsoever. So here's what's cool about the timing of this. So it says this was during the time frame of Jeroboam, king of Israel. Hosea is talking to Israel. Amos is talking to Israel. Jonah is talking to Nineveh. Jeroboam reigned. We know the dates of the reign of Jeroboam. He reigned for 41 years, and when knowing the dates of those, we can correlate that with what's happening in the Assyrian Empire at the same time, because we have all of the temple records from the Assyrian Empire. The palace of Ashurbanipal, one of the most astounding archaeological finds of our time was the library of Ashurbanipal, that had all the court records of what happened this year and this year and this year.
Huge.
Absolutely. It's insane, the amount of information and information that confirms the accounts we have in Scripture too. There's it's like a little stone pillar from, I think, Shalmaneser or Sennacherib, that details his attack on the kingdom of Judah and the time period of it, and how Judah tried to get help from Egypt, and still didn't work, and all that stuff, exactly how it was dictated in Scripture as well. And so we have these amazing archaeological finds from history that confirm the timing and the events that we read about in First and Second Kings, First and Second Chronicles, a lot of these major and minor prophets. Amos, Hosea, Jonah, Northern Kingdom. Isaiah at the same time is in the Southern Kingdom, warning them, pay attention to the guys up north. They're about to have a really bad time because of this. You guys are doing a lot of the same stuff. Destruction is going to come for you, just like it's coming for them, if you don't change your ways. That's in Judah, I think, is about 200 years or so afterward they met their demise to the Babylonian Empire. But Isaiah, while Hosea and Amos and Jonah are in the Northern Kingdom doing their thing, Isaiah was in the Southern Kingdom saying, pay attention. Watch the destruction of your brothers to the north, and don't make the same mistake. So anyway, the timing of this in history. I want to read something from Amos because it's really cool. So this is Amos chapter 5, verse 8. Here again, he's talking to the northern kingdom, Israel. Seek him that maketh the 7 stars and Orion, and turneth the shadow of death into the morning, and maketh the day dark with night, that calleth for the waters of the sea, and poureth them out upon the face of the earth. The Lord is his name. And then chapter 8, there's a verse 9. It shall come to pass in that day, saith the Lord God, that I will cause the sun to go down at noon, and I will darken the earth in the clear day. Those are two very interesting statements that Amos makes. He talks about it talks about it being nighttime during the day. When does that happen? Eclipse. Exactly right. So that's what's so cool about this timing, because so we know the dates of Jeroboam, king of Israel, the time period this happened. It was a 41-year span. We know the dates of the king who was reigning in Assyria at that time, Ashurdan III. And we have the temple records from the palace of Ashurbanipal, which gives significant events that happen every year. There is a year where it says, like the most significant thing that happened this year was that there was a solar eclipse, which means if they were watching the solar eclipse in Nineveh, that means the shadow of that solar eclipse passed over Nineveh. Well, that's important because that's something that we can calculate with extreme precision. In fact, NASA has a database of all the eclipses that go back for like 10,000 years in the back and predicts 10,000 years in the future. Not only the timing of the eclipse, but a path where that's been calculated of where that shadow would pass across the earth.
Okay.
And there is an eclipse in in ancient Nineveh. I have this date written down. June 15th, 763 BC. This eclipse is during the reign of Jeroboam. It's during the reign of Ashurdan III. It's a shadow that was cast across Nineveh. And so we know pretty much the exact timing of this. And so what's sort of reading between the lines a little bit, Hosea and Amos are both saying that Assyria is going to be the one that brings a judgment. Jonah is being sent to Assyria saying, you're going to be destroyed unless you change your ways. Amos makes the statement that God's going to change the day into night. So the Assyrians are experiencing this solar eclipse. Right around the same time, Jonah is saying, God's about to destroy you. Mm-hmm. Amos is saying, God is the one who makes the eclipses happen. Mm-hmm. And so you have those elements working together, and you see Nineveh actually turning to God and escaping destruction for several years. The problem is Nineveh didn't stay that way.
Right.
Because they're subject, the beliefs and opinions of large groups of people can be swayed,
yes,
right? Like we were saying.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't until 2 kings later in Assyria, there was, Ashurdan III, which was the king during Jonah's time. 2 kings down was Tiglath-Pileser III. Tiglath-Pileser is mentioned in Scripture specifically as being the king that attacked the northern kingdom of Israel and conquered it. And it was Tiglath-Pileser who, 2 kings removed from the one that experienced the witness of Jonah, the solar eclipse from God, that was the king when Nineveh turned around. But by the time Tiglath-Pileser III came around, Nineveh had turned back to its wicked ways, attacked Syria, and all this stuff. Mm-hmm. But then you have, I forgot which prophet it was.
Prophet of Bob.
Prophet Bob.
Bob the prophet. I call him Bobby.
I think
Bobby the
this
prophet.
was the only one I didn't jot down, but so yeah, there was another prophet that was oh no, I didn't. Sorry. There was another prophet that was sent to Assyria after Jonah, that addressed Syria after Jonah, that said, you're going to get destroyed now. Mm-hmm. And okay. so I think it's interesting how, like, Assyria was used by God to bring judgment on Israel. But because of Assyria's own wickedness, they still were judged by God later. Yeah. The Assyrian Empire fell. And at the same time, God was sending prophets to Israel. God was sending prophets to Assyria. The southern kingdom, God was sending prophets to southern kingdom as well. God sent prophets to Babylon. Ezekiel was in Babylon. Daniel was in Babylon, and his friends and all this stuff. Mm-hmm. And you see in both of those cases in the Assyrian Empire, under the leadership of Ashurdan III, Nineveh did turn to God for a time, but then they didn't. They regressed. Mm-hmm. Babylon, we do see Nebuchadnezzar turning to God for a time, but then Babylon regressed, and Babylon ended up getting conquered as well. And it's the parallel is cool because in warning Israel, God uses this nation to bring judgment, but then God judges that nation. In Judah, God sends these prophets to Judah. God uses Babylon to bring judgment on Judah, but then God judges Babylon.
Right.
And he keeps sending prophets to both to give them warnings and chances to turn. But the opinions and beliefs of large groups of people are easily swayed.
Josh, how, whenever we say God sent a prophet, practically, how does that information get disseminated? So the prophet goes, does he talk to the king, or does he talk to who does he talk to? He talks to the government, and the government disseminates that information to the people, or
whoever listens to him.
So it's really just word of mouth kind of a thing?
Yeah, word of mouth. They're basically traveling all over the kingdom spreading this word. Just like Jesus did. Just people talk, and they go into places where people talk, and they go into the coffee shops and they spread the information. Yep, and it varies from prophet to prophet too, because like Jonah, he was up on a cliff yelling out to the entire city.
Okay,
prophets like Jeremiah, Amos, people like that. They were traveling through the kingdom spreading that word. Prophets like Hosea, throughout the entirety of his life is a metaphor, and he's using his life as a picture to people around him and spreading that word. Daniel, who was a prophet that was sent to Babylon, he had the ear of the king because he was like head of the Magi. He was an advisor, and so he was instrumental. He was in the palace in the Babylonian Empire and in the Persian Empire. So he had direct access to the king. So they all had their own different methods.
How about that? So effectively, it would take different time periods, obviously, to get the information, depending on the prophet and whose ear they had.
Right.
Might take years, might take weeks, might take months, whatever.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
But God sent multiple prophets to all these people. So there's like multiple wide bandwidth to disseminate the information.
Okay. Whatever and whoever was effective at the time, God could use.
Right.
Whoever they were.
There wasn't an excuse.
Right.
I never heard that.
Right.
Yes, you did.
Just like today.
Multiple times. Yeah.
Right. I've heard conversations about, what if God comes back and somebody hasn't heard about him yet, how can they be held responsible? Well, we're told that before he comes back, everybody will have had the chance.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yep.
Everybody will have had the chance one way or another.
Right.
To make a decision on what to do with Jesus.
Yeah.
Awesome. Josh.
That was fun.
That was fun. Thank you. I've got so many, whenever I'm listening to you, I have the story in my mind's eye that allows me to really understand and to hear the Bible like for the first time. So I thank you for that. It's a blessing for me.
Well, that's one of the mind-blowing things about the Old Testament is, the way we often approach it is this is a book in isolation by itself. Let's read it, and we don't realize the overall timeline of how it all works together.
Yes,
and there's guys being sent up here while the other guy's over here, and they probably knew each other. And this guy was a priest and had influence in this area, and it's so cool to see how it all works together. And then on top of that, to see archaeological evidence that confirms the timing of this stuff is just insane. Like, we can dig up a rock that was engraved during the height of the Assyrian Empire that mentions their war campaigns with the King Jeroboam from Israel or something.
Yes, right.
It's mind blowing.
It is mind blowing.
Yeah.
It's just there's so many. I don't know the correct term, but there's so many times in the history of the world that can be confirmed through archaeology, through the Bible, through other things that can be connected, and there's no argument that this happened this time. Okay, in 500 years later, 2,000 years later, this happened this time. So we can bring together everything in between and get all the resources that we have and talk about it. And the Bible has never not been proven to be true.
Right.
Right. Using that type of resource,
Right.
that timeline thing. And I think that's one of the things that fascinates you about the history in the Bible is the timeline and genealogy.
Yeah.
Also that you use to prove that what we're reading and the resources that we have about God are in fact. It's kind of cool.
Yeah.
I'm glad I'm a believer, aren't you?
It's very faith confirming.
Yes, it is. Very much so. Very much so. And we'll be faithful to come back here. Are we meeting this Thursday? Have you got
Not this Thursday.
Okay, so Saturday I think is Bible is a camera club, and we'll do a podcast, right, Chris?
I might be in New Orleans again next Saturday, but we'll figure it out.
We need to talk about your priorities.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. You might need to bring somebody there. Okay. All right. We'll figure it out.
Okay.
Thanks, Josh. Thanks, Chris, for making time. And thank you for our listeners. We appreciate it. And we'll talk to y'all later. Thanks. Bye.